Tiny Tim, it's a Christmas miracle. The hot stove is warmed up, the temperature in Cleveland. The Guardians sign Shawn Armstrong to fortify the bullpen, and he's getting better with age.
Tanner Vibey of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You thought you could get rid of us. There's no vacations here in Cleveland. The Guardians, they made a move, a real move, and we're back. It's Locked On Guardians. Thanks for tuning in to the extra episode in your feed this week. It is a Christmas miracle. It is Locked On Guardians, the only daily podcast that covers your team for the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you. If you're not new here, you still have to listen to this. I'm Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts for the last 3 years and counting, with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis. And I have spent 18 years covering the Guardians minor league system as a prospect writer and editor, where I covered Shawn Armstrong as a minor leaguer back in the day for Cleveland. And you did too, I believe, Jeff.
Oh, yes. I might have called Shawn Armstrong the next Cody Allen back in those days. I might have had him as the high man on him on, and I don't feel bad having had him ranked 10th all the way back then because he's carved out a heck of a career. But as you mentioned, I am Jeff Ellis, and I've been writing about prospects for a long time. Before joining Locked On 7 years ago, nearly, I was a national writer at Scouting 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts, as well as a big shout out to all of our everydayers and insiders out there. Thank you for joining us. You're getting a bonus episode this week because when news happens, we will be there to cover it. Since no one else does, we will cover your Guardians news top to bottom. Doesn't matter the size. We are jumping in because someone needs to do it. People want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
Yes, and we are here. We are the minds, unfortunately for you. Now the Guardians have signed another reliever. Will they turn their attention to offense? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how the roster shakes out with this addition, because the Guardians do have to let go of somebody to add Shawn Armstrong. But of course, leading off today's show, and the reason we're in your feed today, the Guardians signed Shawn Armstrong, and Jeff, he's getting better with age. That's something we see a lot. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Shawn Armstrong turned 35 in September. So there's a guy around my age on this team, which is very good. I like that. Still a little bit older than him. That's okay. Only by a few months, or about 18 months or so. But he literally has had his best statistical seasons in baseball the last 3 seasons, Jeff. The age 32, 33, and 34 have been the best seasons of his career. How is Shawn Armstrong defying father time? Is he LeBron James?
Well, he's doing it how a lot of players are finding a lot more success, and he's diversifying his pitch mix. He is adding pitches in. He is expanding his repertoire. He was a guy that when I liked him as a prospect, he was mostly fastball cutter, and those are the bread and butter. He has really changed his repertoire, and that's what's really allowed him to be a lot more successful, in my humble opinion. The sweeper and the sinker in particular have really turned into useful pitches, and he's if you're going to get better with age, you got to find things. You got to change what you pitch, what you throw. You got to always be trying to get better. Armstrong, I think you might have talked about it in your now. If not, hey, we got 2 nows. Go check those out for even more info. It's like he ended up being the best player in the Lucroy deal when it was all said and done. He's had the longest career. It's not what we all thought. Like, as much as I did at one point in time think he's going to be a relief stud, I kind of fell off of him, and a lot of people did, and he's bounced around. So it's also good for Shawn Armstrong. I don't know if I bet this is the highest amount of money he's ever made. I bet that $5.5 million is a reward for him. I don't think he's ever gotten to that because he's always been kind of a year-to-year guy. But the way you get to $5 million in your mid-30s is by staying in fantastic shape and working on your craft. And he has done both of those things.
He has. I do know for sure. I've got a friend who became friends with Shawn in AAA when he was pitching for Columbus. And he said this past season when he was with Texas that Shawn wants to get to 10 years of service time in Major League Baseball. So he is at 7. He's got to pitch 3 more years. So if you're going to do that, if he wants to be Brian Shaw to some extent, at least get to 10 years, he is going to have to keep his body in shape. And he's done that. And the nice thing about Shawn Armstrong getting better with age is that the fastball velocity for him is still pretty much the same year over year. Like he's generally between 93 and 95. He averaged 93, 94 last year with his four-seam and sinker. That's consistent with where he was in 2024, consistent with where he was in 2023. It's down a little from 2022, but it's still been very effective in terms of results for him. The fastball is not last year not getting hit hard. He's having good results with it. It did drop a little in value, the four seam, I should say, but his cutter went up in value last year. His cutter in 2024, Jeff, had a -7 run value. This past year, it was 6, and then the sinker was 7. So, hey, some 6, 7, and the sweeper was a +6. But yeah, adding the sweeper has been a big deal for him. The velocity's still there. He throws strikes. I think there's a really nice level of consistency here. He doesn't have a ton of career saves. He only's got 18. But he has been a guy who has gotten save opportunities. He had 9 this year.
So this year was the big one, right?
It was. This was the most he's ever had saves in a season because he kind of inherited that role for Texas when things kind of got out of hand for them at the end of the season when he pitched against Cleveland in Cleveland. I saw him pitch. But, yeah, adding the sweeper has been big for him. The strike throwing has been good for him. Stuff plus models, again, still think everything is pretty good. Not as good as it was 2 years ago. But the fastball, the sinker, all above 100. The sweeper is at a 119. So those models love him. When models love you, that's a good thing, right? And all things. But I'm really excited for this. This is the guy we said we wanted. This is one of our targets early in the offseason was I wanted him or Phil Maton. I know I was on Luke Weaver for a while. That obviously didn't happen. But for this money, and there's a mutual option for 2027, which I feel like mutual options never get picked up, but that's neither here nor there. What I really love here too is that I think you can use Shawn Armstrong in the 9th inning, and you can say, Cade Smith, okay, you're going to pitch the 7th or the 6th when there's a big rally in a big game and you're trying to knock out that rally. I think you can actually use Shawn Armstrong. And tinfoil hat time, Jeff. Shawn Armstrong is going to close games for them this year so they can suppress Cade Smith's salary for the future. I think that's and tinfoil hat again. They're going to use this to leverage Cade Smith into an extension because they're going to say, guess what, Cade? You're not going to get all the saves in 2026. So that's going to hurt your career earnings. But if you sign this extension, you'll be taken care of. How's my tinfoil hat there?
I'll say this. I don't necessarily disagree with you. Just as I'm looking at because saves are what get paid. If you got to figure out either you got to figure out the extension for him or you got to figure out, you got to figure out how you're going to work it just because, yeah, he's going to be in for some big pay raises. So otherwise, I'm hoping that what we see here is a situation where, because he can be effective and getting Cade Smith back in that role of a multi-use weapon, I think is going to help this team. So I would love it if Armstrong could settle into that role and he can pitch great for a year. He can then hit the open market and make big money after that if he proves himself in that role. And if it doesn't work, you can always rotate back. But you can't start with Cade Smith in that role. And rotate one way or the other. You gotta, if you're gonna give it to Armstrong and let him try, then give it to Armstrong and let him try. And if it goes wrong, you can always rely on Cade.
Yeah, well, I just think the idea of not having to lock Cade in the 9th inning is the whole point.
Agreed.
I'm not saying they're gonna say, well, we're just gonna have a closer by committee. I do think there's a possibility that Cade Smith is still the primary closer, but if you say, okay, we'd like to use Cade earlier in the situation, or we have to give Cade the night off, you can potentially use Shawn Armstrong back there and give Cade the night off so you're not burning him out, but you can also use him earlier. That's the flexibility they need. It's not exactly Cody Allen and Andrew Miller of 2016, obviously, but Armstrong, everything that indicates in his profile that he's extremely solid. I love that he has the 3 fastballs too. I can't tell you how many articles I've been reading from really smart pitching people that are saying Eno Saris and Lance Brzezowski, these people need 3 fastballs. You need a straight fastball. You need with IVB, you need a cutter, you need a sinker. When you have 3 fastballs, that keeps guys guessing. They can't just assume it's going to be a straight fastball. And then he has more pitch disparity too. He throws the sweeper, the cutter, and the four seam and the sinker pretty much equally. So you're keeping guys off. You don't see a whole lot of 4-pitch relievers out there, do you?
No.
I can't
Almost
believe I'm
none.
getting excited. I can't believe how excited we're getting about a 35-year-old $5 million reliever who may or may not be the closer. But I don't know. Maybe that's just who we are as a franchise and as a city. But I'm excited, Jeff, and I think this is a good signing.
Yeah, it's a guy. Bottom line, you and I both had him as like top 5 lists from the very beginning. And with the way this market has gone, relievers have flown off the shelves. They're the hot ticket item this holiday season. It's nice to see Cleveland get one of the best guys out there, in our opinion.
It sure is. All right, we will continue to talk about Shawn Armstrong. We'll talk about who has to go on the 40 to make room for Armstrong next. Speaking of the holiday season, Game Time is the way to go. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994 with 48 teams. That is going to be a doozy of a tournament, which means getting tickets is going to be hard. And that is why the Game Time app is going to come in super clutch if you're a soccer fan. It's going to give you the advantage back to the real fans when it comes to getting seats to the World Cup because you can track price drops in real time. You can get alerts when great seats open, buy tickets the moment they hit the app, put the power back in your hands so you can actually go to the World Cup and not just watch from home. Game Time, I'm going to recommend this for holiday season. If you want to go to any event, concert, comedy show, theater, Cleveland's got a great theater district. You can use Game Time to find all sorts of tickets at a good price at the last minute. If you're looking for that perfect holiday gift, take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets, every match, concert, event. With Game Time, download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON. They'll get you $20 off your very first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Appreciate everybody being here with us. Of course you would be here with us because we're talking about a Guardians free agent signing, but we do appreciate you being here with us and making us your first choice to listen to today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. You are living your team every day. We know this because you're here. Take it up a level. Go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club. Get Locked On Guardians with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more for $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnGuardians.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes. Jeff, I found my prospect rankings from 2016. Do you want to guess where I had Stretch Armstrong ranked?
2016. It's going to be a bad guess. I would guess 21.
You're very close. I had Shawn Armstrong 26 in my ranking. I'm sorry, 25 in my rankings that year. 25 behind very well-known prospect names such as Sam Hentges, Shane Bieber, and Logan Ice.
I was trying to find him. He didn't make my top 20 in 2016. So I didn't have him in there in 16 or in 15. So in 14, I had him up super high. I thought he was going to really climb, and then he ended up not making my list either the next 2 years.
Ahead of Shawn Armstrong that year for me also included relievers named Leandro Linares and Rob Kaminsky.
Let's see. Who do I have who's embarrassingly high? Ben Heller in 2016. Ben Heller ahead of him.
How about Tyler Krieger? Where was Tyler Krieger on your list?
Tyler Krieger was 17th on mine.
He was 8th for me. Yikes. Shame.
Yeah.
But doing this 18 years, I'm not good, obviously.
Yeah. No.
Juan Hillman, number 9.
Number 8 for me. 9 was Tristan McKenzie.
Tristan McKenzie was number 1, who we'll talk about later. Jeff's got some research.
Wow. Yes, I have way too much research, but he'll be in segment 3. I just want to throw this out there too, because salary is always a thing. So let's just very quickly. If you count Class A and Ortiz, I have them at $76.7 million. Before people start yelling at me, there's 3 things everyone forgets. 1, you have to count the money they're paying Straw. 2, you have to count the money they're paying Trevor Stephan. And if you count the 40-man roster and guys on the minimum, that's an additional $12 million. Like, that's the money that no one ever counts, is the fact that it's everyone on the 40-man. So the 40-man roster actually comes out closer to when I have this, because I have guys who are just making the minimum in the minors plus 1 year and mins minors. So it comes out to a total of actually closer to 14 million. So you have to add 14 million to any payroll number if you're just adding up who's on, because you have to count the guys in the minors. So I have them at 76.7, and I have them, if you don't count Class A and Ortiz, at 69.88. So that is, if you go back and listen to my show from like 2 Mondays ago, where I discuss, I take apart the Braves payroll to figure out what Cleveland should be in the range to spend. This puts them at about 77% of their where they should be compared to the Braves numbers, or on the Class A RT side, 71%. So there's still plenty of room to operate. And again, for everyone who is sitting there getting ready to type, what about the bats? Let me just very quickly here. The relief market in particular, it's bad. Hunter Harvey is about the only guy I would really look at as someone you give money to. Everyone else is a camp invite. Everyone in baseball, every team went for this market hard, and you couldn't wait. If you waited, everything would be gone. In terms of the bats, it feels like we're not seeing trades, and this team is not going to sign a free agent. It's a bad hitter class. Even someone like Refsnyder, when you look at the whole picture, as much as I would like to upgrade the floor, it's probably going to be Fry and Martinez in that same role. So they're probably not going to sign a Refsnyder. Let's just be honest. So they're not going to go for a free agent. It's got to be via a trade. All those trades are held up by the top end free agents. You got to see what Bregman does, because that's going to affect Arizona and that's going to affect Seattle. You got to see what Bichette does, because that affects Boston. So they can't really go out and get a bat right now because the trade market is held up. And they're not going to shop at the high end of this free agent market. And the middle end of this free agent market is trash. So,
and they're waiting. They're going to, I mean, those guys can't sign either until, like, I know, like, Lane Thomas signed and Mike Yastrzemski signed. So, like, those guys are off the board, obviously. Like, those are middle tier free agents. But yeah, Rob Refsnyder is still out there. But you're right, it's probably going to be a trade. By the way, the relief market, Hunter Harvey is the best projected reliever left. Pete Fairbanks is out there, who can't pitch in Cleveland because he can't pitch in the cold.
I keep forgetting.
His finger injury. So Anthony Dominguez, 38-year-old Justin Wilson, and after that it's Sean Newcomb. So yeah, it's pretty bad out there. So that's why the Guardians had to go here. So hopefully they'll turn their attention to bats next, but they've got to wait the market out on that a little bit. Like they're not gonna go out and find all these guys out there. Back to Armstrong too, real quick. You mentioned this is probably the most money he's ever made. Do you know how much money he made in his career up until now? This is a whole career at this point in the majors.
I'm going to guess about 10 million.
7.9 up until today. So he more than doubled his career earnings in one off season. He made 1.25 last year for Texas. What a great deal for them, by the way. So yeah, that's a good one. Good for Shawn Armstrong to get paid. And it doesn't say anything about what the mutual option is for next year, but who cares? Yeah, no, it's a great deal. And again, they can, we'll see how things develop. Right now, was it not Murakami, the M guy who I keep forgetting that too.
Yeah, like he's got to sign, I think, by tomorrow. So like he'll sign
22nd. They all got to sign by the 22nd.
No, they're different ones. They're
okay.
So his is first, and I believe his is actually tomorrow. His window opens first. The Casito, the one I'm interested in, the first baseman, but he's a first baseman, so he doesn't make sense here. He and Amana, the pitcher, are later, and after them is
Okamoto.
Okamoto is in the next one, and then Sun Mung Sung, I believe, is Bach, is that the third baseman from Korea, who I also kind of like. But those guys are the further down the line ones. But we'll maybe start to see some movement because this is a player who has to sign. So it feels like, and the talk is the White Sox are going to get him. And I sent you a tweet with Saris had kind of a hilarious tweet when you look at guys with his contact numbers. It's not a good list.
It's not. Nick Kurtz is on it, so it is a good list. Okay, stop it. Stop
when
it.
You
right
have
now.
A near 400 BABIP. A lot of things can get covered up.
I will not tolerate Nick Kurtz slander on this podcast.
That's a story for another
Jeff
day.
and I were just talking about off the air how well we get along, and he's testing that right now by slandering Nick Kurtz. That's as bad as canceling Noel on Christmas. That's as bad.
So
we have to talk about who's going to go off the roster. So who's going to be cut for Shawn Armstrong? Where do they go next? And the history of Guardians high school pitching drafts is bad. It's very bad. Jeff's going to tell you how bad in a little bit.
But first, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. They specifically, let's talk about live betting. If you are a Blue Jackets fan, time to load up on live betting. When that third period starts, bet on everything that is the other team's going to score a lot, score often. Man, it's painful if you're a Blue Jackets fan right now. That third period, it's just every time. Every single game, they're going to cough it up. They're going to stink it up. They're going to blow the third period. So if you're going to have to deal with that pain, you might as well make some money off of it. The Cavs are giving up 6.5 tomorrow they are 6.5 favorites, even though the Bulls just beat them. And I mean, the Browns only 10.5 to the Bills. That feels like free money. We know they're going to get slaughtered by the Bills, who have to fight for their playoff hopes. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
All right. Keep up with the Guardians and Locked On Guardians all off season long. When there's big moves like Shawn Armstrong, or when there's moves like Justin Brule, if you get the bell on YouTube, you get our reaction videos sent right to your phone. Again, no matter how small, we cover it all. That should be our TV slogan, Jeff.
Yeah.
But we do videos for every transaction for the Guardians. We react to it, tell you our thoughts. We post emergency episodes like this one when they sign a free agent like Shawn Armstrong. So if you hit the bell on YouTube, you make sure you never miss any of those, and auto download on all of your favorite audio platforms, so you can take us with you wherever you go and never miss an episode. And if you're behind, that's okay. It stays in your feed and you catch up. It's one of the best ways to support the podcast, honestly. So make sure you're checking that out. All right. I mentioned Justin Brule. I have to say, I think he's candidate number one to be DFA'd off this roster to make room for Shawn Armstrong. I know some people will say that's not, they want somebody else gone. I've heard Jonathan Rodriguez mentioned, but he just survived John Kenzie Noel because he has options left. And as much as I don't want to see Jonathan Rodriguez play baseball for the team that I watch every day, I think he stays. I think they'll try to sneak Justin Brule through waivers. They didn't give up anything for him but cash consideration. So they're not going to carry three lefties in the bullpen, I think, come opening day. There's a long time between now and opening day, but I would have to guess it's going to be Brule would be my number one candidate.
Yeah, especially because he doesn't have any options. I think that's what stands out with Brule.
He has not been lively. You're right.
No, and when they don't have anything to in that situation, when Nikhazy still has options, who's another guy who I think is kind of in that. If I'm making a bottom five list, it has Rodriguez, it has Nikhazy. Unpopular opinion incoming in 3-2-1. It's PD. I have PD Halpin. The difference though is that the one without options is Brule. He got all the way to Cleveland in the claim system. So you're hoping that, hey, maybe you can pass him through. He becomes a decent depth arm. There's some fun stuff there. And sometimes fun stuff turns into Matt Festa. So who knows what could happen, but it does feel like right now that he is probably candidate number one to see if they can get him through waivers.
Yes. I will say, I think they're at this point in the offseason, they are running thin on roster fodder. If they sign, let's say they sign a Rob Refsnyder, for example, like I would imagine then Rodriguez does go, but like they are running thin on roster fodder. So like something has to give, I think, is like, you can't move on from Alaman. You can't, we thought for a while his roster spot was in jeopardy, but I don't think it is anymore.
No.
And, I mean, Vogt called him out specifically unprompted and at the winter meetings, and they need the depth. So they won't give up on him there. I could see like Connor Brogdon, passing through. Like he's not making that much money and he doesn't have options, but I could see him passing through. But they gave up more money to him than they did to Brule, so we'll see about that. But they are running thin. By the way, the Guardians bullpen this year, this is how it could look. You got Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Shawn Armstrong, Eric Sabrowski, Festa, and then you got your pick of Brogdon, Holderman, Brule, Pallette, and then you can always use Walters and Alaman, and maybe Daniel Espino is depth down the road. You don't have to use him right away. Plus, you got Tim Herron. I didn't mention Tim Herron. The Guardians are done with the bullpen. I think they're done. Maybe you'll see some non-roster invitees going forward in pitching. Maybe they'll give an invite to 40-year-old, I don't know, Kirby Yates or something. Like, I don't really know who is left out there.
I still kind of like Scott Frost as a camp invite. That's my guy.
Sure. Or, Nick Sandlin, which are
Eli Morgan.
Eli Morgan. I don't know if he's healthy or not, but those are guys you could invite to camp. That's probably what they'll do at this point with pitching. I think they're done. So hopefully they're ready to turn to offense. But as we said before, they kind of have to wait for the market to shake out. Like, I know, again, everyone's saying, like, okay, can they sign a hitter? Can they acquire a hitter? I think they're going to have to lie in the weeds and kind of wait for the offense to shake out. Again, Kyle Tucker's got to come off the board. Alex Bregman has to come off the board. Bo Bichette. I mean, could you jump the market and say, here's $5 million, here's $7 million, Robert Refsnyder? You could, but he may want to wait himself. Not the Guardians want to wait. Maybe they don't want to wait. Maybe they do, and they say, we want to wait because the price might come down, but the players themselves might say, if I wait, maybe someone will get desperate. Like when musical chairs starts to wind down, like the hitter, the player might say, hey, there's not a lot of guys left. I provide value. Can that increase? It's the chicken or egg thing. I don't know. Can you? I think if I was like a Rob Refsnyder type free agent, I think I would wait too for these other guys to come off the board, and I'd say, hey, I know you weren't shopping in this part of the market, but you need someone who does what I can do. There's not a lot of options left. It's January. Camp starts in 3 weeks. Like, I think you can market yourself and say, I'm the last pick, man. It's me or it's Jonathan Rodriguez next year. Okay, Mr. Rob Refsnyder, here is $7 million, and Jonathan Rodriguez, here's your ticket to Columbus. We'll get you an apartment and enjoy your stay.
I don't know. I don't think it helps as much with the players, just because we know Cleveland waits in the weeds because we know prices come down the longer guys sit.
Maybe.
So, I think I will say, though, it does feel like with Cleveland, they were focused on an area, which, again, it made sense to focus. They needed relievers. You and I talked about relief help was as important as adding hitting. And it was a market that disappeared quickly. And again, specifically with Bichette and Bregman, and even with, again, the Japanese guy who's coming off today was a third baseman. Like, you needed some of these infielders to shift off the market, because if you're talking about Brendan Donovan, if you're talking about, again, I don't think with some of the other stuff going on, they'd have any interest in Marte, but like, you have too many names, and Cleveland kind of needs the names and some of the seats to go away. They need some of these guys to shift off. And once guys start shifting off, it opens up opportunities for Cleveland to make moves. So I think they're kind of stuck in that holding pattern until a few more of these things get figured out.
Yep, absolutely. So again, it's going to require your patience. I mean, we didn't know when the Guardians were going to strike. I think you and I both thought there was another reliever for them to make a move for out there, whether it was Hunter Harvey. I still like the idea of Hunter Harvey, and they're probably out of it now. They've gotten Shawn Armstrong, and that's fine, because I think Armstrong was a really good candidate for them. So that his money kind of replaces Class A. So hopefully they can get that off the books and reset themselves. We won't know until camp, unfortunately, in which case the free agents are gone. But who knows? But Jeff, some other Guardians news. Tristan McKenzie, former Guardians draft pick and my former number 1 top prospect back in 2016, as I revealed, is signing a minor league deal with the San Diego Padres, according to R.M. Layton of Just Baseball, former Locked On Prospects host, broke that news. I wish Tristan McKenzie nothing but the best. It just did not work out here. Like, 2020 was fun. 2022 was great. Love the kid. I think I know you and I had different experiences and interviews with him in the minors. I talked to him in Lake County. I talked to him in Akron after he came back from his back injury, I think it was, and he gave a home run to one of his best friends, Bo Bichette, which was hilarious. I always thought he was a great dude. I love the talent. I know you go back a long way talking about his body type just not working. But as far as I know, the kid was always good, and I know he worked hard and he cared, and the velocity was back. It's just the mental side of things. Hopefully Ruben Niebla can help him out over there, and I want things to work out for him, even though they didn't work out here. But the Guardians, they might want to avoid picking high school pitchers. Can you do a 2-minute version of your research? I know it's not a lot.
No, I'll just quickly go through this all very quickly. I'll say this too. So for those who are curious, I'll tell a fun story. Well, before I get into this, I'll tell a fun story another day about how there's literally no pitcher who has Tristan McKenzie's body type. And that was always my concern with him, that he doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So very quickly, I went through every single Cleveland Guardians draft pick from round 1 through round 41 is where I stopped. And this is your all-time list of prep players the Cleveland Guardians have drafted in reverse order, starting at tied for 9th. These are high school pitchers. This is the best high school pitchers in the almost 60 plus years of drafting. Tied for 9th at 2.4 WAR each. You have Alan Embry in 1989 and Aaron Laffey in 2003. Coming in at 8th at 2.9 WAR is Pep Harris, who they took in 1991. At 7th, Rudy Saenz at 3.3 WAR, taken in 1986. 6th, Jared Wright, 4.4 WAR, taken in 1994. 5th, Tristan McKenzie. That's right, Tristan McKenzie has the 5th best
Top
WAR
5
of all time at 4.9. Taken in 2015. 4th, you might have forgotten about this guy, Chris Archer, 13.5 WAR, taken in 2006. 3, Larry Anderson. The problem with Anderson and Archer, 2 guys that kind of traded too early. Larry Anderson, good for 3.9 WAR, drafted in 1971. And in 1972, the next year, they took Dennis Eckersley, future Hall of Famer, at 62.1 WAR.
Speaking of traded too early.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with this list. It's a lot of guys traded too early at the top of it. But they took Anderson and Eckersley in back-to-back years, didn't keep either of them. That's why this team was terrible in the 70s. And then just 0.2 more than Eckersley for a career is CeCe Sabathia at 62.3, who they took in 1998. So, yeah, this is a lot of guys. They've drafted a lot of prep pitchers through the years, a lot. Every single round.
They're all bad.
It's all bad. Number 11 was Sam Henches at 1.4. That's how bad it is. So, it makes me feel a little bit worse about that 2024 draft where they went deep. I mean, I really like Braylon Dowdy. Don't get me wrong. Who knows? And the recent value hasn't worked out great either. When you look at some of the guys they paid highly who have gotten hurt, so it's a risk. It's a gamble. It's a huge gamble, and it has not paid off for Cleveland.
Every once in a while, they're able to unearth a high school pitcher that works out for them. So let's hope that one of the guys they took in 2024
4 times in like 60 years. That's worse every once in a while.
I guess McKenzie and Henches were the most recent examples, and they weren't good ones. So they're due, right? I mean, you talked about Sabathia and Jarrett Wright. Jarrett Wright got hurt, but Sabathia was great. He was a first-round pick.
Jared Wright also didn't take care of himself. He spent a little too much time in the flats and not enough time in the jail. Let's be real honest.
Woo!
Everybody, if you are of the right age, you knew someone who Jared Wright approached in the flats and said, "Hey, do you know who I am?"
I see what you did there. Yeah. The right age. My mom was a huge Jarrett Wright fan. I'll have to ask her if she ever partied with him in the flats.
There's a chance. If you're the right age, then Jared Wright was all about it.
All over there. We'll be back on Monday. Chances are, if the Guardians announce this move officially, they'll have to make a move to add him to the 40 and remove somebody else. So if that gets announced over the weekend, we'll talk about it on Monday. We'll keep you up to date any weekend headlines on Monday, and then we still have to react to these Zips projections, which we'll have to look for Shawn Armstrong in the future. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Shout out to the insiders who were with us on a chat earlier, and enjoy your weekend. And let's get some more moves. Let's get a bat.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this extra content, and go Guardians.